going the shortcut way would take you from 2008 to 1968, or wherever they happened to be when they crossed.
Liz, Minnesota, we go. Hey, Liz.
Hi. Thank you, George, for having me on. It's a pleasure talking to you. Lionel, good evening to you as well.
Good evening.
Yes, and I have a question for Lionel. How do you feel about angels? Do you believe that they are beings from God, or would you say that they are people passed over? How do you feel about angels?
I think it's a wonderful topic. I'm so glad you've asked the question. I feel myself that both answers could apply. That if we look at the physical universe and think about the simplest of life forms, from single-celled amoeba, going all the way up to people like us who can broadcast and who can listen and who can exchange ideas, in between us and the amoeba, there is a gradation. It's like the steps on a ladder of all the other types of living things, which become more and more and more complicated until we have things like the dolphin and the whale and some of the big anthropoid apes who are pretty close to us in their mental abilities. Now, above us, let's think of that now as a sort of spiritual ladder, and from us to God is an infinite distance. But what if there are beings in between? It would be logical. It would parallel the physical creation if there were various ranks of angels and cherubim, and I don't see why not. Jesus himself certainly believed in angels, and I said, if it's good enough for him, it's good enough for me. He talked about Lucifer having fallen from heaven, having been an angel, and then, lost it. Now, if we can look at the other side of your question, which I find really interesting as well, is that when we have deep affection for another human being, I had a great pal called Billy Farrer, and we were like brothers. Bill was a terrific guy, and he died a few years back, and I went over to conduct his funeral to a little village outside Cambridge in East Anglia, and I then had to drive home again, having just laid Bill to rest in the earth, along the M4 motorway. I'm basically a biker. I drive a car, average, but I'm a two-wheel man at heart, whereas Bill was a brilliant car driver. He could have been a racing driver. He could have been another Schumacher. He was superb. He could have won the Indianapolis. He was that kind of a driver. And as I was coming home, I overtook a big Scandinavian Arctic. The driver was on the other side, and there was his left-hand drive cab, and his feet were above my head as I sat there in my Ford Granada, and he didn't see me, and he just pulled out and hit me. And I did not know what on earth to do. I was pinned on the front of his 40-ton Arctic heavy goods vehicle and being pushed down the road. A tire came off, and I thought, any minute now, I'm dead. And then I felt as if there was another pair of hands on the wheel, and someone who knew much more about driving than I did was showing me what to do. And I got out of it alive. Car was a write-off, but I came out unscathed, and I stood by the side of the wreck looking upwards, and I was saying, Billy, was that your first job as a guardian angel? And I could imagine him saying to the Lord, my pal is a biker. He doesn't know what to do there. Can I go and help him, Lord? And he'd say, yeah, sure. I got some more work for him. I need him for George Norrie's show.
Deborah in Los Angeles. Take it away, Deborah.
Yes, I was wondering in all your studies, especially when it comes to the ancient people, when a religion came, a practice came, whether it was the Hindu reformer Buddha or Zoroastrianism, why specifically when the Egyptians came down from Ethiopia area, why there remained for a couple dozen centuries the practice where the priests and kings practiced Hindu practices, whereas the common people brought with them from Africa fetishism. Why that's such a distinction where the other religions tend to go across the board in the culture?
That's a very interesting and at the same time a very technical question. And I think what we have to look into here, as well as the spirituality of these things and the theology, we have to look into human behavior and sociology and psychology. And we have to try to work out for ourselves as we look back at other people's beliefs over a period of many centuries as to why certain religions, certain religious thoughts and practices seem to have been more, as it were, penetrating than others. In some historical circumstances, you will find that two religions, which are very, very different, have existed peacefully and happily side by side. In other circumstances, one has sort of percolated through the other, and a hybrid, rather like the Voodoo and Santeria, has come out of that conjunction of the two religions, or three or four or more. And in other cases, there has been, as there was in medieval Christendom, when certain people were just imposing their will at all costs, and you either believe it or they set light to you, that it's in the different social groups and the culture and the reaction of the culture to the adjoining religious beliefs.
Lionel, my friend, we are out of time. Do me one favor and say goodnight to the world for me.
Okay, I'd love to do that, George. We say goodnight to all our listeners everywhere. God bless you all, and it's been a wonderful privilege to be with my good friend George Noory.
You got it. Lionel Fanthorpe, what quite a guy indeed. Let's wrap it up. For Karis Coburn, Dan Galante, Tom Danheiser, Lisa Lyon, Lex Lonehood, Sean Ladesseur, Ross Mitchell, George Nappy, and pundit and Art Bell, I'm George Noory. Somewhere out there on Coast to Coast AM, we'll see you on our next edition. Until then, be safe, everyone.